So, in what will be one of the least shocking news stories of the year, the Liberal Party of Canada is trying to steal money right now. They let a bunch of people run in their leadership election who have to raise money in order to pay down payments to be on the ballot in the race. And then they are allowed to just kick people out and pocket the money anyways. This is what the Liberal Party is currently doing to former Liberal leadership candidate Ruby Dalla, who had raised the $350,000 to get in the race, and now the Liberals don't want to give any of it back after kicking her out for very vague reasons. It has to do with apparently financial issues with her campaign. They said there were 10 major problems they discovered, although they haven't really detailed any of them out. The one they did mention was provably false in the sense that it was like a husband and wife who both donated on the same credit card. That's not donation fraud in any way. And if you were to consider that some sort of like financial issue, the campaigns of Mark Carney and Chrystia Freeland did the same thing. It's utterly ridiculous. But here is a video of Ruby Dalla addressing this on the CBC, and then she actually sent out a press email to all the media on her appeal that she's currently undergoing.
It is certainly not surprising because I think the Liberal Party of Canada was seeing exactly what our internal polls are telling us, that my campaign and my team, we were neck to neck with a front runner in the race. They did not want me to go on to that debate stage in Montreal. They certainly did not want me on that ballot. And the Liberal Party of Canada wanted to complete the coronation of Mark Carney. All of the allegations that you have mentioned, they are completely false, they are fabricated, and I will not allow the Liberal Party of Canada, or anyone for that matter, to smear my name or to smear the name of thousands of volunteers in our campaign.
So, what she did say over top of this post is she said the establishment is clearly rattled. The Liberal Party had a clear agenda from the start, $350,000 for their pockets. They do the right thing and refund the hard earned money that hardworking Canadians donated to my campaign? And you know what the Liberals are also going after? Not only do they want the $350,000 from Ruby Dalla's campaign to use to fund their own operations, but this allows them to also basically ban Ruby Dalla from being able to run for office again. If they take her money away and then she's unable to pay back a bunch of her campaign expenses that she was supposed to be able to use some of that $350,000 to pay off, because that's how it usually works in these leadership elections. You have to have $350,000 to qualify. They take your money, they take half of it, they give you half of it back, but they've just taken all of it. And now the party can just not give it back to her, and by Elections Canada rules, which are very loose when it comes to leadership races and nominations. But the one thing they're strict on is that you actually have to, rectify your finances by the end. And the Liberals can now hold Ruby Dalla hostage by taking in all of her money, not even giving it back to her donors, not giving it back to her. And she ends up being offside with Elections Canada. And they end up making it so that she can't she can't even get back in the race. She has to appeal. So she's not in the race. She can't run for anything potentially because she might be offside on finance issues, and the donors don't even get their money back. Again, one of the main reasons, and I say again because I've mentioned this in previous videos, one of the main reasons that they couldn't have Ruby Dalla in this race is not because Ruby was going to win. I highly doubt that Ruby was neck and neck with Mark Carney. I think she was a contender. I think she maybe could punch above her weight, get maybe 13, 14, 15% on first ballot. But the main reason why she was a threat is that if she got on that debate stage and she ripped Mark Carney a new one, it would throw his entire brand into question. Mark Carney's brand is already mud at this point. Nobody really cares about Mark Carney. He's a fairly boring guy. I guess he's not Trudeau, so it's pumping the Liberals' numbers up a bit. But the man has skeletons in his closet that are already pouring out onto the floor because while he seems like a very buttoned down professional banker, he's also a radical leftist on so many issues. His support of central bank digital currencies, like carbon tax tariffs. He supported the increase of capital gains inclusion rates. Every stupid lefty policy that the Liberals have pursued over the last 4 to 5 years have been advised on by Mark Carney. Anyways, I do want to move on from this issue because I do want to go down to the ongoing attack ad run that the Liberals are currently running against Conservative Party leader Pierre Poilievre. This is their new one. I guess they think it's going to somehow damage Pierre Poilievre going into the 2025 election cycle. They tried this for 2 years. It didn't work for those first 2 years. I don't see why this would work now just because Trudeau's not the leader.
A lot of people would say that you're simply taking a page out of the Donald Trump book.
Like which people would say that?
You are fake news.
Fake news.
Defeating the radical left.
Radical leftist authoritarian agenda
Have turned our once great cities into cesspools of bloodshed and crime.
Unleashed a crime wave like we have never seen in this country.
Bring it home, right?
Let's bring it home.
Put America first.
The Canada First plan.
By the way, these are things that literally every politician who is at least reasonable will say in their career. That, like, there's stuff like bring it home that everyone said forever. But talking about crime in cities, is that really your big hit on Pierre Poilievre, that he thinks crime's a problem and Donald Trump Donald Trump also thinks crime's a problem? Like, it's almost like those two can see material reality and they can notice that there's a lot of crime in our cities, that everything's getting dingier, that we actually need to enforce the law. You know, we should crack down on vandals and people shoplifting and people selling and using drugs in the streets. That might be a good idea. But apparently, if you agree with Donald Trump on something factual, that means you're a bad person because something evil orange man bad. Yeah, this is not going to play. I have another embarrassing cartoon to show you. This is not from the Liberal Party of Canada. And yes, that was a Liberal Party video. They're trying to do this sort of weird meme format where like they play the very kind of boring, I guess, slightly stock music over photos with the text popping up. I think they think it's funny, but it doesn't land literally at all. But here is an article from The Adder Canada, and this is another media hit we've seen on Pierre Poilievre, another political and media hit we've seen for a couple of years now, and I don't know why they do it. It's stupid. So The Adder Canada has this cartoon here depicting Pierre Poilievre choking out a member of the press saying, "I don't understand why the media doesn't like me." How has Pierre Poilievre metaphorically hurt the media in any way? When did he ever do this? When did he ever do something that damaged the media? What is it? Because at a recent press conference he took independent media questions and that's a threat to the legacy media who's already heavily subsidized by the Canadian taxpayer? Or is it because he pushes back on bad questions from reporters? I think that that's a job of any politician, that if they think a question is unfair, that they refuse to ask it, and they actually go after the reporter for smearing their character. Because Pierre Poilievre does not get asked unkind questions that he doesn't want to answer. He gets asked smear questions, where the whole point of the question is that it makes Canadians think, oh, well, he had to be asked if he supports the far right or something like that, or he had to be asked if he's a white nationalist or whatever the media has been doing to Pierre Poilievre. And even if you answer it straight up and you say, no, that's ridiculous, blah, 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 there's still going to be the sort of Canadian who's like, well, why did it have to be asked in the first place? And Pierre Poilievre knows this game, so he goes at the reporter themselves. That you're smearing me. What do you mean by that? Name something, because you seem pretty sure that I'm a horrible human being. So I'd love to know what your background information is. You keep saying I'm far right, that I'm doing something out of Donald Trump's playbook. And the funny thing is that it's doing something out of Donald Trump's playbook is mostly just saying he's doing conservative things, because Donald Trump, for the most part, is just a conservative. Most people on the right around the world are just conservatives. And so they can't really name a policy that Donald Trump has, that Pierre Poilievre has, that's bad, because they'd probably just name a policy from Donald Trump that if Canadians heard it, they'd be like, well, that's kind of fair. Fair enough. You should probably deport people who illegally enter your country. You should probably do X, Y, or Z when it comes to, men and women's sports, when it comes to cracking down on bad prosecutors and whatnot. It's all sensible to people, and that's why the hit never works. because you can't name something that Poilievre and Trump agree on that would actually be considered deeply unpopular. Anyways, there's one more story I want to touch on before I end the video. By the way, guys, at 9 p.m. Eastern time tonight, or I think it's 8 p.m., we have a video coming out, not hosted by me, but hosted by my friend Benjamin Dichter. We're doing another interview with Jim Karahalios for the Ontario provincial election. Make sure to check that out. He's going to be doing a little bit of a background on what the New Blue Party is, who Jim Karahalios is, because BJ and Jim have known each other for a while, so we wanted to host that interview here. So again, if you don't see me on it, nothing's wrong. Nobody's taken over the channel. Just every once in a while, Daniel Boardman or BJ Dichter sometimes releases something around on the channel. Anyways, I want to talk about the BC NDP going after a very good conservative MLA, Dallas Brody, the only BC conservative MLA in the city of Vancouver. She's in Vancouver Quilchena as the MLA. And NDP people, NDP MLAs like Christine Boyle, who I guess is the BC MLA for Vancouver Little Mountain, she is attacking Dallas Brody because Dallas Brody has said the very true statement that there have been zero bodies of children found under the Kamloops Indian Residential School. By the way, prefacing, residential schools were bad for the most part. Obviously, you're going to have people who had fine stories and it was just a boring, stupid summer school they went to, or like it was just some boarding school. But overall, it was bad. But for some reason, the left has tried to maneuver our society into the position where unless you agree to the most fever dreamish fueled horror stories about residential schools, then you're just denying that they were bad, even though you just want reality and truth to actually rule the day. And we want to actually, tell stories of Canadian history that are accurate to it. This is considered bad. So Dallas Brody, for the sin of just saying that there hasn't been any actual bodies confirmed at the school after more than 2 years, this Christine Boyle person says, this is abhorrent behavior from John Rusted's team. There is no place in BC for residential school denialism. And this has been said by tons of BC NDP MLAs, their staffers. I've gone through a lot of it. By the way, a lot of these people are crime deniers, by the way, and actual crime deniers by the definition of what denial means. But this is the type of person who's also said this, and I'm going to give a good shout out to Sai Benhan Alexander here, who pointed out that this is the person who said that rape crisis centers were bad because they only let women in. She said back in, this was 2019, trans women are women and sex work is work. Trans women and sex workers deserve care and protection. I can't support orgs who exclude them, so I won't be supporting city funding for Vancouver rape relief. I hope we can redirect funds to an inclusive provider. So women who have suffered sexual assault now must also be in a center with biological men. That is absolutely insane. But this is a woman who's now going to try and come out and try and smear the character of Dallas Brody for pointing out a literal fact and pushing back on the Law Society in BC for attacking lawyers for not repeating the misnomer that there are 251 bodies underneath the Kamloops Residential School. It's just not true. I think somebody pointed out, they're like, well, actually, residential schools have the same death rate as POW camps in Germany. They're not talking about death camps for in the Holocaust. They're just talking about prisoner of war camps. They had the same death rate, and it was 3,000 people, they were saying, over the time that they existed, which was, I guess, the same rate as POW camps. The problem is that they're still having to count people who just didn't go home. They didn't die. They just didn't return home, and that's still a tragedy and terrible. But that's not true. And even if that was true, do you actually think that 251 of the 3,000 people who died were all at this one school, and you didn't hear a book about it by now, that this place was just murdering children? It just didn't happen. I'm sorry that for some reason you want more children to have died, but I think that the truth matters and that we should actually tell the truth about things, because it actually undermines the tragedy of residential schools to exaggerate it to the point where somebody might not even believe that they were ever bad because you guys keep lying about them. Oh, that story annoys me so much. I hate the way that the left has been treating this. They treat it as a pawn. They treat Native people, Indigenous Canadians, as pawns. They won't allow for natural resources to be developed on their lands. They completely deny them the actual ability to have like strong local economies. They underfund the police in their communities, and then they'll come over and say, "No, Dallas Prody, you must be a bigot because you've noticed that this has kind of been a hoax." It's been a hoax to the point where the local band council in that area of British Columbia has called it out and distanced themselves from the claims that other people were making. Anyways, so that's it for me today, guys. Remember to like this video, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, do all that great stuff. I'm still in Ontario for one more day helping out the New Blue Party. Again, if you live in Ontario, please vote for the New Blue Party in the provincial election. Doug Ford is as liberal as Justin Trudeau is, and the only thing that ends up sustaining him in these elections is the fact that he still runs the PC party, which used to be conservative, and a lot of people will just keep doggedly voting for it as long as it has the legacy of Mike Harris still attached to it and other far better PC leaders from back in the day. Anyways, see you guys later.